I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. But here I am, pouring my heart out. My name is Mike, and I've been married to my wife, Sarah, for nearly 8 years. We have 2 amazing kids, Jake, 6, and Lily, 4. Life was hectic but good, until it wasn't. Lately, Sarah has been acting strange, and I can't shake the feeling that something's seriously off. At first, it was subtle. She'd come home late from work more often, claiming she was caught up in meetings or happy hour with colleagues. I wanted to believe her. I really did. We were both busy, and I figured that was just part of our routine. But as weeks turned into months, I noticed little things that began to gnaw at me. The way she'd guard her phone like it was a vault, how she'd roll her eyes whenever I brought up our dwindling intimacy, and how she always had a crazy excuse ready to explain why she had to cancel our plans. I tried to push it aside, tell myself I was being paranoid. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. I felt like I was losing her without even realizing it. The conversations we used to have felt forced, and her laughter, which used to light up the room, was now a distant memory. We'd spent countless late nights talking about our dreams, but now, the only thing we seemed to share was the house and the kids. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but I couldn't shake the gut feeling that she was hiding something. I had no idea how right I was, or how painfully close to the truth I was about to get. The turning point came on a Thursday night that started like any other. Sarah had mentioned she was going out with some of her work friends for a team-building dinner. I didn't think much of it, she often had these outings. But something felt off that day. I just had this nagging feeling in the pit of my stomach. After putting the kids to bed, I settled in for a quiet night, figuring I'd catch up on some shows. But as the hours ticked by and Sarah still hadn't come home, that feeling intensified. I tried texting her, but I only got a generic "I'll be home soon" response. Around 11 p.m., curiosity got the better of me. I picked up her phone, which was lying on the kitchen counter. I hesitated for a moment. Was this crossing a line? But I had to know. I unlocked it and started scrolling through her messages. At first, it was all mundane stuff, work chats, group texts about the kids' school events. But then I saw it. A message from a guy named Dave, someone I'd never heard her mention. My heart started racing. The conversation was flirty, filled with inside jokes and emojis. I scrolled up, and my stomach dropped as I read messages about how much they missed those nights together and plans to meet up. It felt like a punch to the gut. They were planning to meet that weekend. Just then, the front door creaked open, and I quickly put the phone down, my heart pounding. Sarah walked in, a little tipsy, with that familiar smile plastered across her face. But I wasn't in the mood for smiles anymore. The adrenaline coursing through my veins made my voice shaky as I asked her about her night, trying to gauge her reaction. "Just dinner and drinks with the team," she replied, rolling her eyes as if my question annoyed her. "You should really lighten up, Mike. It was just fun." But I could see her defensiveness creeping in, the way she shifted her weight and avoided eye contact. In that moment, I realized I had to confront her about what I had found. But my heart was racing, my mind was screaming for clarity, and I felt a mix of anger and betrayal bubbling inside me. I knew I couldn't let this slide any longer. The moment I saw Sarah's face, I knew I had to speak up. The anger and hurt were too much to contain. "Sarah, we need to talk," I said, trying to keep my voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions raging inside me. She froze, her smile fading. "What's wrong, Mike?" Her voice was overly casual, but I could see the flicker of concern in her eyes. I took a deep breath, steadying myself for what was about to unfold. "I saw the messages from Dave on your phone." The words felt heavy as they left my lips, and her face instantly went pale. "Are you serious? You went through my phone?" she snapped back, her voice sharp. "You have no right to do that." "Right or not, I found something, Sarah. You're planning to meet him this weekend. What the hell is going on?" My heart was pounding as I waited for her response, and I was ready for anything at this point: anger, tears, or outright denial. She crossed her arms defensively and rolled her eyes, her irritation radiating from her. Oh, come on, Mike. You're blowing this way out of proportion. It's just harmless flirting. You know how it is at work, everyone jokes around. Harmless flirting? Really? Because it doesn't sound harmless when you're making plans to see him. I shot back, my voice rising in disbelief. You're telling me that's just a joke? I thought we had something real, Sarah. She scoffed, shaking her head. You're being so dramatic. You know I love you and the kids. I would never cheat on you. But the look in her eyes betrayed her. I could see the anxiety creeping in as she realized I wasn't buying her excuses. Then explain the messages, I demanded, frustration bubbling over. How can you expect me to just sit here and accept that this is nothing? She hesitated, and for a moment I thought I might get a genuine answer. But instead, she leaned back, crossing her arms tighter. Fine. Maybe I was flirting, but it doesn't mean I'm actually cheating on you. You're the one who's always working and distant. You can't expect me to just sit around and wait while you ignore me. That's dumb. I felt the heat rise in my chest, anger mingling with deep hurt. Ignoring you? Is that what this is about? Because I didn't realize that giving you space and being busy with the kids was a license for you to betray me. The silence hung between us like a thick fog. I had never seen Sarah like this, so defensive, so cold. And as I stood there, staring into her eyes, I couldn't help but feel the weight of everything crashing down on me. I was losing the woman I loved, and she was making excuses instead of taking responsibility. The room felt like it was closing in on me as the confrontation unfolded. My heart raced, caught between disbelief and an overwhelming sense of betrayal. I could feel tears welling up in my eyes, not just from anger but from the realization that the woman I had built a life with was now standing in front of me, dismissing my feelings like they were nothing. Is this how you really feel? I asked, my voice trembling as the weight of her words settled in. You think it's okay to flirt with someone else just because I'm busy? I thought we were a team, Sarah. Don't make this about you, she shot back, her voice rising. You have no idea how lonely I've felt lately. It's not like I've been asking for much, just some attention, some excitement. You're always on your phone or working late, and I can't take it anymore. That was like a slap in the face. I had been doing everything I could to support us, to provide for our family, and now I was being accused of neglecting her. So your solution is to sleep with someone else? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You couldn't just talk to me? She crossed her arms again, and I could see the walls she was building higher and higher. I didn't sleep with him, Mike. We've just been talking, okay? You're so uptight, and I wanted to feel something, anything, other than this rut we're stuck in. The conversation spiraled, my anger transforming into a deep sadness. I had always known Sarah to be strong and independent, but this was a side of her I had never seen before, vulnerable and defensive, grasping at anything to justify her actions. The woman I loved was crumbling before my eyes, and the realization hit me like a freight train. This wasn't just about her, it was about me, too. As the night wore on, I felt a mixture of anger and profound loss. I loved her, but the person standing in front of me felt like a stranger. Each excuse she made felt like a betrayal layered on top of another. I remembered the times we laughed together, our shared dreams, and the warmth of her touch. It all felt so distant now, like a cruel joke. I went from shock to anger to deep sadness, like waves crashing over me, one after another. How had we gotten here? I had invested so much into this relationship, and now it was crumbling under the weight of her lies and half-truths. It felt like I was losing a part of myself, the part that believed in us. Do you even want to fix this? I finally asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Or is this just the end? For the first time, I saw a flicker of vulnerability in her eyes, but it quickly turned back to defiance. That's for you to decide, she replied coldly, and in that moment, I realized just how far apart we had drifted. The days that followed were a haze of emotions, anger, confusion, and sadness intermingled with fleeting moments of hope. I went through the motions of parenting, but every time I looked at Sarah, all I could see was the betrayal etched in her eyes. It was as if a veil had been lifted, revealing a stark reality I never wanted to confront. I spent long nights lying awake, replaying our conversation in my mind. Part of me wanted to fight for us, to salvage what was left of our marriage. But another part felt like I was clinging to a ghost, desperately trying to hold on to a love that was fading fast. I knew I couldn't pretend everything was fine anymore. One night, as I sat in the dark, scrolling through old photos of us, laughing on vacations, celebrating anniversaries, my heart ached with nostalgia. I remembered the promises we made, the dreams we shared. But those memories felt tainted now, like they belonged to a different lifetime. I couldn't keep living in a facade, hoping things would magically return to how they were. Finally, I reached a breaking point. I knew I had to sit down with Sarah again, but this time it wouldn't be a confrontation. It would be a conversation about our future. I needed clarity, and I needed her to be honest with herself and me. "Sarah," I said, mustering the courage to approach her one afternoon while the kids were napping. "We need to talk. For real this time." She looked at me with a mix of wariness and exhaustion. "What now, Mike?" I took a deep breath, steadying myself for what was to come. "I can't keep doing this. I can't pretend everything is okay when it's clearly not. You have to decide what you want. Do you want to work on our marriage, or do you want to keep lying to yourself and to me?" Her expression shifted, and for a brief moment, I thought I saw a flicker of understanding. "I don't know, Mike. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I just wanted to feel alive again. I thought that maybe if I had a little excitement, it would help." "Excitement? You're jeopardizing everything we've built together," I replied, my voice shaking with frustration. "I need to know if you're willing to fight for this marriage or if you've already checked out." Her silence was deafening. I could see the gears turning in her head, but she wouldn't meet my gaze. I guess I didn't realize how far I had drifted. I was just caught up in my own mess. But I don't know if I can go back to how things were. That admission was a knife to my heart. "So you want to keep this door open, even if it means hurting us both? If you can't commit to us, then I have to think about what's best for me and the kids." Her eyes filled with tears, and I could see her fighting against them. "I'm scared, Mike. I didn't mean to hurt you. I thought maybe we could just figure things out together. Can't we try?" I took a moment, weighing my options. Part of me wanted to reach out, to hold her and tell her we could make it work. But the other part was screaming that trust was shattered, and the foundation of our relationship was crumbling. I needed to protect myself and our kids, who deserved a stable environment, even if that meant facing the hard truth of separation. "I think we both need time to think," I finally said. "Maybe we should take a step back and consider what we really want. If you want to be with Dave or whoever else, then you need to be honest about that, but I won't be a backup plan. I refuse to put myself through this pain any longer." Her silence spoke volumes, and deep down, I knew that no matter the outcome, this was my moment of resolution. I would not let her keep me in limbo. Whether it meant working on our marriage or moving on, I was ready to take the first step toward healing, whatever that looked like. In the days that followed, everything felt like a whirlwind. Sarah and I agreed to take some space while we sorted through our feelings. We still shared the responsibilities of parenting, but the atmosphere at home was thick with unspoken tension. I threw myself into my work and spent more time with the kids, trying to keep myself busy and distracted from the emotional storm swirling within me. But deep down, I was still processing everything. I found myself reflecting on our relationship, the love we once had, and how it had morphed into something almost unrecognizable. It was heartbreaking to think that we had let things get this far. I missed the late-night talks and laughter, the dreams we had painted together. But I also realized that the Sarah I knew had been slipping away for a long time, and I had been too caught up in my own world to see it. During this time apart, I took a hard look at my own feelings. I was angry, yes, but I was also heartbroken and scared. I had invested so much of myself into our marriage and our family, and I feared losing everything. Yet I knew that I couldn't stay in a relationship where trust was broken, where love had turned into something conditional. I needed to protect myself and the kids, even if that meant ending a chapter 1 wasn't ready to close. After a week of reflection, I reached out to Sarah for a serious talk. "We need to be honest about where we stand," I said, my heart pounding as I sat across from her. "I can't keep living like this." She looked worn, bags under her eyes and an air of defeat around her. "I know, Mike. I've been doing a lot of thinking, too. I've realized I have to take responsibility for what I did. I was wrong. Do you want to work on this?" I asked, my voice steady but tinged with uncertainty. "Or do you want to explore whatever it is you think you're missing with Dave?" "I don't know," she admitted, wiping away a stray tear. "I thought I wanted excitement, but I realize now that I want to fix us. But I don't know if I can earn back your trust. I've hurt you too much." I took a deep breath, knowing this was the moment of truth. "I want to believe in us, Sarah, but I can't just pretend everything is fine. It's going to take time and real effort. I need to see that you're committed to repairing what's been broken, not just because it's convenient but because you truly want it." We sat in silence, the weight of our conversation hanging heavy in the air. Finally, Sarah nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I'll do whatever it takes, Mike. I want to fight for us, for the kids. I'm so sorry for everything." With that, I felt a flicker of hope for the first time in days. It wouldn't be easy, and I knew we had a long road ahead of us, but I felt more empowered to face the future. We agreed to seek counseling, to really dive deep into what went wrong and how we could rebuild our marriage. As we took that first step toward healing, I also made a promise to myself: no matter what happened, I wouldn't lose sight of who I was. I deserved to be happy too. In this painful journey, I learned that self-respect and boundaries are crucial in any relationship. For anyone else going through something similar, I would say this: trust your instincts. If something feels off, don't ignore it. Have those tough conversations, no matter how painful they may be. You deserve honesty, and if you're not getting it, you owe it to yourself to seek clarity. Relationships take work from both sides, and sometimes, that means knowing when to fight and when to walk away. As the days turned into weeks, Sarah and I began our journey of rebuilding. Counseling sessions became our safe space, a neutral ground where we could finally voice our feelings without fear of backlash. Our therapist, Dr. Chin, was a godsend, helping us peel back the layers of our emotions and the circumstances that had led us to this point. At first, it was incredibly uncomfortable. Each session felt like a raw nerve exposed. Sarah admitted her feelings of loneliness and frustration, but I also had to confront my own shortcomings. I realized I had become so absorbed in work and providing for our family that I had inadvertently neglected her emotional needs. But I also laid bare the hurt she had caused me. "It felt like you were living a double life," I said one day, voice shaking. "Every time I thought I was giving you space, it felt like I was giving you permission to stray." I felt replaced. The tears flowed freely during those sessions, both from Sarah and me. I could see the remorse in her eyes, but I also saw a determination to change. She was willing to work through her mistakes, and that meant a lot. In turn, I committed to being more present, to actively engage in our relationship instead of letting it drift. Outside of therapy, we started implementing small changes at home. We set aside time each week for date nights, even if that meant just watching a movie after the kids went to bed or cooking dinner together. We tried to create new memories, reigniting the spark that had dimmed over the years. It wasn't always perfect, but each moment felt like a step in the right direction. However, the road to recovery wasn't a straight line. There were moments of doubt and frustration. Some days I'd catch myself staring at her, wondering if I could truly trust her again. Other days, I'd feel a wave of anger and betrayal wash over me, reminding me of what had happened. I had to remind myself that healing takes time and that it was okay to have those feelings. It was part of the process. I also leaned on my friends for support, those who had been there through thick and thin. I shared my journey with them, and it helped me feel less alone. They reminded me that I wasn't just a victim of circumstance. I was a man who was learning to stand up for himself, and what he deserved in a relationship. As time went on, I began to notice changes in Sarah too. She was more communicative, more affectionate, and seemed genuinely invested in fixing what had broken between us. I felt a renewed sense of hope, though I knew we had a long way to go. We still faced challenges. Sometimes I would overhear her on the phone, and my heart would race, anxious about who she was talking to. But I made a conscious effort to communicate those feelings rather than letting them fester. "I trust you, but sometimes my mind wanders back to those moments. I'm working on it, but it's hard." And each time, she would respond with understanding, assuring me that she was committed to making things right. "I'll do whatever it takes, Mike," she'd say, her sincerity washing over me like a balm. With each passing day, I felt a little stronger, a little more sure of what I wanted. The journey ahead would be long and winding, but I was determined to navigate it together with Sarah. And while I still had moments of uncertainty, I also had the faint glimmer of hope that we could emerge stronger on the other side. As I sit here reflecting on everything that's happened, it's hard to believe how much has changed in such a short time. The path we've walked together since that fateful confrontation has been filled with ups and downs, but each step has brought us closer to understanding ourselves and each other. In those early days post-discovery, I often felt like I was drowning in a sea of betrayal and hurt. But now, I see that the emotional roller coaster was not just about what Sarah did or didn't do. It was about the cracks that had formed in our relationship long before the affair. It took a painful situation to shine a light on those cracks and force us to address them. I learned that communication is the lifeblood of any relationship. Without it, resentment festers, and misunderstandings grow like weeds. I've also learned a lot about myself through this process. I realized that I had to prioritize my own emotional health. I used to think I had to be the strong, stoic provider, but I now understand that vulnerability is not a weakness, it's a strength. I've learned to express my feelings more openly, to voice my concerns, and to demand respect, not just for myself, but for the relationship. For anyone reading this who might find themselves in a similar situation, here's what I've learned. Trust your gut. If something feels off in your relationship, don't ignore it. Address it head-on before it escalates into something unmanageable. Communicate, communicate, communicate. This cannot be stressed enough. Open, honest communication is essential. Don't let things fester. If something bothers you, say it. Set boundaries, know your worth. If trust has been broken, it's essential to establish what is and isn't acceptable going forward. Protect your emotional well-being. Seek support, whether it's from friends, family, or professionals. Don't hesitate to lean on your support network. It's okay to ask for help. Be willing to work. If both partners are committed to fixing the relationship, be prepared to put in the effort. It won't be easy, but the rewards can be worth it. Don't rush the healing. Healing takes time. Give yourself permission to feel angry, sad, or confused. Those feelings are valid. As Sarah and I continue on this path of healing, I can feel the foundation of our marriage being rebuilt, brick by brick. We're learning to trust each other again, and while the journey is far from over, I have faith in us. We're no longer just drifting, we're navigating together with intention. I can't predict what the future holds, but I do know that I've emerged from this experience stronger and more resilient. I'm more aware of what I want, not just from my marriage but from life. I've come to cherish the small moments, the laughter with the kids, the quiet evenings with Sarah, and the hope that maybe we can find our way back to each other, perhaps even stronger than before. So here we are, taking it one day at a time, hopeful for what lies ahead. It's not a fairy tale ending, but it's our story, and we're committed to writing the next chapter together.